AI Mentors is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our podcast, AI Mentors, brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI Mentors cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career.
You're listening to AI Mentors. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Ken Schwartz. Ken is the VP of Innovation for Healthfirst Data. Ken, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Ken, just to start, let's get a bit of background of yourself, what got you involved in technology, and really to talk about some of the interesting roles you've held along the way.
Yeah, thanks. It's not the probably usual story you've heard. So I'll back up to coming out of college, and this is in the 90s. I was looking for kind of an interesting job. I got very, very interested in music during college, so I wanted to move to Chicago, which was the nearest big city, and play music and do a really interesting job. And so I ended up getting a job with the Centers for Disease Control. The role was disease intervention specialist, which is basically sort of the epidemiological core for where they train epidemiologists for the CDC. So it involved going door to door and working on the sexually transmitted disease issue in Chicago at the time. And ironically, or really kind of sadly, the numbers were crazy in the 90s for sexually transmitted diseases, syphilis, gonorrhea, chlamydia. And it's a big issue because babies born to mothers with syphilis have congenital syphilis, have brain damage, a lot of bad stuff. So the numbers were out of control in the 90s, which is why they had this program. And sadly, the numbers are out of control now. They just had the highest rates they announced last week. So it went really down and then back up. It's generally involved with when drugs get really, really cheap. There's a lot of exchange for drugs and things like that. So if you only need $5 or $10 to get high, there's a lot of sex exchange and things like that, and STDs can go out of control. So anyway, we were working on the front lines of that in the 90s, and I was going door to door, interviewing people in the clinic one day, and then having them elicit their sex partners, and then going out on the next day in my red Nissan 200SX, to some really challenging neighborhoods and tracking down potential partners. We had mobile phlebotomy kits. We were trained on taking blood, and so if the potential contact wouldn't come into the clinic, we would literally draw their blood on the hood of our car sometimes, and it was crazy. I almost think when I describe it to early career people, like, it's hard to imagine that they would even do this now. But the program was successful, and we all learned a lot, and I did that for about 5 years, and then just decided technology started sounding like a really sort of a safer and a really interesting thing as well at the time. So I kind of jumped into tech.
What an amazing start to what has been an interesting career and how it's changed. So talk us through the transition from a role like that into tech. What in your role at the CDC sparked your interest in statistics and correlations that led to you pursuing a career in tech?
Yeah, there's a couple of things really. They're still using the same system at the CDC. It's called EpiInfo, and at the time it was this incredibly DOS command line kind of system, and we really tracked cases with a pencil and paper and manila folders. But the interesting thing is, I got really interested in the connectedness of things, because you would lay out the cases on a timeline, and then you would see syphilis in particular is very time specific. So there's infectious periods, and you can kind of track amongst communities and see the people that are at the center of the communities. And so even though it was very sort of old school, it really, a lot of the things we're doing now, a lot of things we're doing at Healthfirst, which I'll talk about in a bit, are very similar, kind of looking for patterns, looking for connections in the public health situation. So that got me interested. The tools luckily got a lot better and a lot faster, and in cloud and everything. Like it's really amazing what we can do now and what we will be able to do. But the principles are the same. Like, how do diseases spread in communities? How does utilization of health services follow that? Or it's really the same deal.
So then what was the transition role that took you away from CBC into a fully fledged tech environment?
Yeah, it was literally kind of getting an HTML book at the time and getting really excited about the possibility about the simplicity of the web and the immediacy kind of. I was self-trained. Most of my friends, we were playing music at the time, and so I think there's kind of cross-aptitudinal with musicians and learning to code and things like that. So most of the people I worked with were all self-taught. We got books, learned JavaScript, learned CSS, learned HTML, and all of a sudden we're web developers. That got me into visualizing data. I got really excited at the time. This is dating myself again. I was really into Flash, and Flash was great actually. Its demise still saddens me, but and then JavaScript and kind of making data come to life, making data beautiful, making data understandable visually, so sort of visual analytics. So in the interim period, I was actually working at the New York Fed after I moved to New York, and doing a lot of running teams that were producing visualizations of the economic data and things like that. So I really, really got into the kind of D3.js, JavaScript, and all that kind of stuff, and mostly running the teams. And that kind of was a great learning experience for how you deliver analytics projects versus software projects too, because it kind of fits my mind as well to have 5 things going on at once. These are kind of smaller projects, visualization projects. So kind of got really into sort of like the Kanban flow of everything, Kanban boards, and having a life cycle for those kind of projects. And, we still kind of do that now as well, even in like the data science world. So yeah, initially just web development, then into visualization, and then more into statistics and kind of BI from there.
So you're at the Fed, having progressed up the ranks into a pretty senior position, very influential. How do we then go from the Fed to nonprofit healthcare?
Yeah, I mean, it's all around use cases. And the last period of the Fed, I was really doing a lot of use case work. So the data visualization went into things like NLP and more getting into Python or hiring Python developers and things like that. And so doing NLP work, I got really, really into graph databases at the time, and sort of getting back to that connections around diseases and things like that. Like I love Neo4j, and I love putting data into a graph and doing community detection and things like that. So I started those use cases at the Fed, met a really great analytics leader, Steve Pruitt, who was at Healthfirst at the time. And he and I really bonded over kind of Tableau and visual analytics and things like that. And just it was really full circle back to those CDC days to kind of go back into healthcare. And Healthfirst, seemed like a really interesting place to kind of do the same things with a totally different outcomes.
Very much a full circle back into service again. So look, tell us about Healthfirst, in particular, what your role involves and what you guys are doing to impact the healthcare industry in a positive way through the use of data.
Sure. Healthfirst is a New York City-based managed care company, and we're actually owned by 15, I believe, is the number right now, sponsor hospitals. So we have an interesting relationship. We share risk on our members with the sponsor hospitals. If members we have a lot of Medicare and Medicaid members. When they receive services at our sponsor hospitals, we actually keep the costs and keep the revenue inside the delivery system. So anything that, if we keep our patients really healthy, any of the excess revenue we pass right on to the sponsor hospitals. So it's a really interesting business relationship. And it makes a lot of sense because we're both incented to keep people healthy and keep people out of the hospital. It's not the revenues increase when fee-for-service model. So it's a very interesting model. And the other interesting thing I think about Healthfirst that makes it very satisfying is it's just hyper-localized. It's all the hospitals, most of our membership are in the 5 boroughs, and also Nassau County and some of the counties around. People have grown up with Healthfirst in their neighborhood, and we sort of have a lot of trust with our members. Whole families are on Healthfirst. If you go to civic things in Brooklyn, or if you go to festivals and things like that, Healthfirst has a booth. People see the logo. It's like once you start seeing the logo, I'd never even heard of the company. Once you start seeing it, you notice it all over the place. So it's this sort of subtle embedding into the community.
Anyone who rides the New York subway system will know Healthfirst.
Exactly.
So the branding it's very much a local New York feel.
Exactly. 1.4 million members right now. We like to say if you ride the subway in New York City, 1 in 7 people on the subway are likely Healthfirst members. So
Here at Alldus, we want to make the hiring process easier for all. Whether you're an employer or an aspiring employee, we have the service for you. For full-time work, Alldus will partner with you to find the best person for the position. Using both our network and our rigorous qualification process, we ensure that only the best talent is shortlisted. We will manage the process and work with you to select our most suitable candidate for your organisation. We also offer excellent temp hiring services. At Alldus, we provide a great opportunity to help you and our candidate make the right choice. The contract period is one long interview for your full-time opening, and the extended experience with our consultant helps you make the best decision. Alldus International is here to quickly help you find the best AI candidate. Our experts stay in close contact with our consultants throughout the duration of the contract, ensuring they have everything they need to get the job done.
What are some of the challenges that you're facing in transforming the data operations and the use of data within Healthfirst? How do you go about taking it from a legacy system into more modern data?
yeah, I think it's a challenge that I find really interesting. It's one of the other reasons I think I joined Healthfirst is not just the sort of visual analytics, the Tableau Center of Excellence, but the ability to take a company's legacy data, and health insurance companies famously have data all over the place inside a company, and also want to use a lot more external data than sort of have previously. So that ability to be on the ground floor of a big data transformation to the cloud project was really, really enticing. It's been super challenging. Companies all over the world are doing this, learning a lot. It can be painful at times, but I think that's the biggest legacy we're going to leave at this company, that we've really kind of taken a 25-year-old company and gotten the data in really good shape in the cloud. So challenges, I think the first year or two, well, so there's definitely getting the talent that's different from the legacy systems to cloud systems, things like integrations. And we're an AWS shop, so I really kind of love how the cloud is architected with a lot of, it reminds me of my days of building software, is that you finally realized after a while in software that if you break things up into single concerns and make nice messaging between them, it makes the applications a lot more stable and a lot less brittle. So AWS is kind of architected that way. There's a million little things you can plug in. The plugging in is really hard, and sort of getting the talent together that does that kind of stuff is, I think, a challenge for any company. We started off with really using the visual analytics kind of to get people into the platform, and it's a really good way to get people using the new patterns and new cloud. So a lot of Tableau work. And then I think we kind of discovered after a while that the data engineering behind the Tableau is really important as well. So sort of creating core data assets for the company. If you put Tableau on any BI tool on top of a lot of disconnected data that's kind of found data, I guess it's, sometimes it's, and it can lack common understanding of business rules and things like that. It needs to get to a new level of maturity as well there. So I think we've moved from a mostly visual analytics strategy to building up the data science team, bringing in new capabilities like graph, and we're in the process of setting up a center of excellence around NLP and around unstructured data and things like that. So that sort of second phase, getting people really enticed with visual analytics, then getting people into modeling and getting the business understanding and ourselves understanding even how to build and deliver models in that middle phase. And then we're moving towards the third phase of maturity, I think, which is really being able to get all of the outputs of the central analytics team out into the company, into source systems, into we're building a mobile app. So getting things off the data scientist desktop and into the fabric of the company is a whole nother level of maturity and challenge.
And as you continue to progress through these phases, where do you see the biggest impact to the patients and your members overall? What can we expect in the future that by utilizing modern methods of data, how can it impact patient care or premiums, anything at all that they can be excited about through the good work you guys are doing?
Yeah, I think it's more targeted. We're a traditional company and we've been very successful, and most of it is by sending nurses out, to our sickest patients and things like that, and really providing that very personalized delivery. So bringing modeling, we have 1.4 million members. We can't knock on all their doors or call them every day. So just developing models that can be mixed and matched, and all of a sudden you have strategy, a much more sound strategy on who we need to visit, who we need to reach out to for making sure if they're going to be adherent to their medications, making sure if they're at risk for falls and things like that. Those are the kind of things that we're uncovering with the increase in maturity and things like data science.
Amazing. I want to get your perspective on dealing with various business stakeholders and helping them understand the capabilities of modern data science methods. And it may tie back to your early experience in CDC dealing with challenging communication situations. But can you talk to us a little about, in your experience, what you've had to overcome as you progress in your career, dealing with different business stakeholders who may be tech-centric and legacy systems, or have no full concept of what we can do with modern data science and analytics?
Sure, it's really the most challenging thing, I think, for most data science shops right now. Most AI offerings is A, getting it off the desktop of the people building it, and B, explaining what the heck's going on and how it can be operationalized, and making sure it gets pulled through all the way to some actual actions. So it's also the area I find most interesting, and probably my best skill set, that is to sit down with stakeholders to sort of hear the list of things that they are thinking about or that they think they want, or there's no lack of ideas around analytics projects or models and things like that right now. So I think the real challenge is sitting down with stakeholders in a list of 10, 20, 30 things that we might be able to do, figuring out the 2 things that we should do, 3 things that we should do, because really doing 2 or 3 things well is the real impact. It's not half doing 30 or 40 things. It sort of seems that way. It's counterintuitive, but so having those conversations, I think it's important at each stage of your career. I tell early career people, we have a really great set of early career people at Healthfirst. We're really able to, with our mission, pull in some very, very smart, very accomplished people right out of school who want to do good with data. So I spend a lot of time talking to them, and I really want them to sort of build things for 3, 4, 5 years. That's how you sort of know how things work, and that becomes an important conversation then with your stakeholders. They give you that long list, and in your mind you're saying, okay, there's a lot of data debt there, so I know this is a data engineering problem. There's a couple quick hits there with maybe a dashboard, and then maybe we talk about a model here, and sort of when you're mid-career, you have those conversations with mid-career people. When you become more senior, I'm having the same conversations. It's just more with senior leaders. So kind of building those muscles, that's the real job, I think. And that's jobs that can't really be automated. Those are the jobs that are going to persist. I think it's where I have the most fun.
It's also one of the, particularly early on in people's careers working within data science, data engineering, analytics, it's one of the most underappreciated skills. And it is a skill like anything else that people can work on and get better at. Yes, we want to be amazing at all areas, but the ability to communicate with stakeholders across the business, in particular non-technical stakeholders, is an essential part of a data scientist, data engineer's career, regardless of level. Yes, it becomes more important depending on the role, whether you move into product facing or client facing, but every junior data analytics, data analyst will need to work on this. And I think, you've given some good advice on how to go about doing so.
Yeah, if you're really, I listen to a lot of podcasts and read a lot of blogs and things as well. And to the really top people in the industry, it can be really the single determining factor of the success of your data science or your AI effort. I mean, really, it's that important.
I think that's a great way to finish the interview. Ken, listen, thank you again for your time. This has been incredibly informative, really enjoyable, and I hope everyone else has got the benefits from it as well.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.